Next up, let's look at stances. These are the core of the character. She lives and dies by these stances. Everything she does is built on getting into them, doing your damage, and going from there. If you remember Lidia in the last game, she had 4 stances. 2 basic stances that like a forward and a backward. Like that. And they were called Cat Foot Stance 1 and Cat Foot Stance 2, unfortunately. Karate people tell me that's what they actually call them. They just call it Cat Foot 1 and Cat Foot 2 for whatever reason. Unfortunate. When you got to talk about Cat Foot 1, 2, and Cat Foot 2, 3 plus 4 shit, it's horrible. So now in this game, they have changed. They are Horse Stance and Cat Stance. In the previous game, each one would go into a secondary stance. One of them would go into Stalking Wolf, and the other would go into Heaven and Earth. Now that's changed a little bit in this game. Heaven and Earth is only accessible in heat mode, but it's accessible from all the other stances. So instead of just having Cat 1 go into this and Cat 2 go into that, now you have Horse and Cat that both go into Wolf. Goes into Wolf, goes into Wolf. So they both changed that. Wolf is now your second level stance, so to speak, from either path. Doesn't matter which one, you're going to the same place when you go into your second stance. Heaven and Earth, exclusive to heat mode. So that's a pretty big change. And the flow of her moves change along with that a lot. So let's start with Horse Stance. None of these are very complicated, but there's a ton of little details and tidbits inside. Horse 1 starts us off with a Power Crush homing move that's plus on block and goes right into Wolf. Hit or block ends up in Wolf Stance. You can see on hit it's 16. And on block, it's only 1. It's plus 1. That plus 1 is a little misleading because your options out of Wolf are not 10 frames. So you got to do the math sometimes and figure out what you can and can't do with these. And that's a big part of it that we'll talk about more in a little bit, is what you can actually get based on your frame advantage. But either way, being plus 1 of any kind is really good. So Horse 1, Power Crush, homing, goes into your next stance. Even more offense from there. Horse 2 is this hit throw when it hits an opponent from the front. That hit throw is a heat engager. And you can hear that shing and automatically activates your Heaven and Earth stance. You can stop it from doing that by holding back. Heaven and Earth transitions can be canceled by holding back. None of those stances can do that. If you do, forward, forward 2, for example, she goes into Horse no matter what. You can't hold back and prevent Horse. Heaven and Earth is the only stance you can cancel out of like that. So Horse 2 on regular hit is this hit throw, heat engager. You notice there's no heat dash. She doesn't dash at all, but she goes into Heaven and Earth and you get a mix up that way. You get your pressure from that. And while she's in heat mode already, she can just hold forward and get the whole combo like that. It just forgoes the animation part and gives her the combo. So it functions as a normal heat engager, except for there's no dash. There's just Heaven and Earth instead, which you can opt out of if you want to. So anyway, that's your fastest option out of Horse Stance. It's 16 frames. So you'll see when we get to the next section how to get to drag or how to get to Horse, what that means to be 16. This is your fastest option, so remember that. Next up is Horse 3. This is a low crushing, safe mid kick that's also homing. I don't think she needs 2 homing moves, but if you're worried about the first one being a high, this is a mid wall splats. This is an amazing move all around, right? Low crush, mid, safe, homing, knockdown. That checks every box. The only thing that's better is the other move is faster that's a high. I don't know. I mean, this is kind of all you need. She could have just dealt with this, and then Horse 1 didn't also need to be homing, but here you are. An abundance of homing moves. We can't really complain about that. Next up is Horse 4. This is the slowest move. This one takes a minute. Like quite literally half a second. It's 28 frames on startup. But, however, this on block is plus 8, and it goes into Wolf automatically. On hit, it knocks down and goes into Wolf automatically, and you get a free follow-up. Counter hit, even, you get a whole combo. It launches in the air for a combo. So that move has everything as well. It's just super duper slow. Even if you have like all the frame advantage in the world, let's say you're plus 15 there, and you go for a 28 frame move, they can still beat that with a lot of stuff. They can just shoulder you right out of that. So you kind of have to have them in just the right position for Horse 4. But when you do, it's an amazing move. Counter hit launcher, plus on block, knockdown, etc. The last piece is 1+2, which is a low counter hit launcher to kind of complete the package there. This is hella bad on block. It's -18, but you gotta have to go for that risk sometime. Being the only low, you gotta treasure it. You cannot let them duck against this character. You want to use your lows very, very sparingly. They're overall not that good, but enough of them are dangerous enough that you need to make them respect the lows and then go back to your mids. Do not abuse one or the other, but you got to make sure they are not willing to duck against you. That's a big part of your layers of offense, is making sure they're scared to duck because your mids are so nasty. But that one exists, completes the puzzle, counter hit launcher. The other options out of Wolf are all movement. If you just tap forward, you'll go into Wolf. Both stances can do this. Hold forward and tap into Wolf. If you're in heat mode, you tap up and you'll go into Heaven and Earth. Again, all three stances can do that. And if you double tap back, she'll run away like that. All three stances can do the same. So they can all do that. They can all press up to go into Heaven and Earth. They can all backdash out of the stance. And the first two can press forward to go into the second level stance. So as far as the ways to get into horse stance, you can obviously do it manually by pressing forward 3+4. It's going to take a step forward, so you kind of need some range if you're going to just like go for this. But the moves that lead into it, forward 2 used to be the only one in the last game. Pretty good though, because on block, +5 is enough to get a decent amount of offense. We'll talk about that a little bit later in the playstyle section, how you work with these stances, what the goal is. But for now, suffice it to say, forward 2 on hit is really, really good. You can do whatever you want. Even on block, you got a lot of options. That used to be the only way to do it. But now you have down back 3. This goes into the stance. If it hits, cool. +7 is great. If this gets blocked, it is -19. It's so much. What you got to look at, though, is it says 11 on the screen right there. It says -11. What it does not account for is all three of these stances take 8 frames to be able to block again. You can block on the 9th. So when that says -11, it actually means -19. You can move, as soon as the stance begins, you can input and your move comes out. You know, say this was 17 frames. So I could do this move and it comes out in 17 frames, but I can't block until 8. So the fact that this says I'm already -11 from the block, then the stance comes out and I can't block for 8 more frames. So I get punished real hard for that. So you can't get out of punishment by using the stances. There is a trick later on. Heaven and Earth has a way around that to just cheat and get out of punishment. But this on block, really, really bad. This on hit goes into horse. Counter hit, it takes on the old hell sweep animation. You get that and you don't get your stance out of it. So those are the only ways to go into horse. It's very limited, but it's a very tight, compact, really good stance. You get lots of good stuff out of it. Counter hit launchers, frame traps, heat engagers, and you can go into wolf from it pretty easily. Next up is cat stance. You can do the opposite by just doing back 3+4. I often kind of wish this would take a back step, whereas horse takes a step forward. I kind of wish cat would take a back step, but it does not. Anyway, it's fine. Cat is not as complete in my opinion. It lacks a homing move and it lacks a power crush. So without a power crush, you can get jabbed out of stuff a lot more easily. But again, it depends on your frame data. And we'll talk about that later. Basically, like everything else in the game, if your move got blocked, you should probably back off. It's their turn to attack. You do not press your offense. But if your move hits, you have the frame advantage to keep going. So that's true for most all of these, right? If this move hits, go for your mix-up. This move gets blocked, maybe back off. That's the nature of the game in general, and that's really, really important for these stances. You do not want to do, a move that's -4 into stance and then go for a 15-frame move out of stance, right? They're going to blow you up. But anyway, cat stance has a lot going on and a little bit more complexity and stuff, but it's just not as complete. Cat 1 is this safe mid knockdown. I gotta like having that. You can just do this all day. So Cat 1 is a safe mid. Cat 2-2 is new. Not a natural combo, but this is used as a tornado in juggles. This also has a just frame input. It gets a little bit extra damage when the blue sparks and all that. And it counterparts Cat 2-3-1. You'll notice that on counter hit, 2-2 is a combo. And 2-3-1 is also a combo. So if you happen to get the counter hit in this stance, you could go for the whole 2-3-1 and blow them up. But if not, and this is not combo, and you're going to get punished. All 3 hits are -10. If you stop anywhere, -10. Back 2-2, -10 with every single hit. So you can get punished. You just want to do these as kind of like another piece of the puzzle. You don't rely on them. You throw them in with all your other options. You keep them guessing. It is worth noting that the second hit of 2-2, if you catch the counter hit, is a launcher on its own. So I don't know how you're going to plan for that, but it does happen, right? If you're just throwing out cat stuff and they decide to challenge that and get counter hit right there, you know, there you go, combo. So keep that in mind. It's a unique little set you can throw around and do, you know, different versions. Just do 2, 3 and stop. But again, it's unsafe everywhere. You can't abuse this. Just be careful. Next up, Cat 3. This is the fastest move out of your set at 13 frames, and it's a heat engager. It's a high heat engager, and there's a couple of places where this will be guaranteed, which is kind of cool. Certain hits that lead into stance, you get that for free. Cat 4, whoops, that was horse. Cat 4 is a nice low sweep. This automatically goes into Wolf. If it gets blocked, it's unsafe. But if it hits, you go into Wolf and you get your mix up right there, just like everything else. Block equals bad, hit equals good. This is a counter hit launcher. And it goes into Wolf anyway. You get your combo, blah, blah, blah. The thing about this is there is a follow-up. Cat 4, 3+4 does that. I personally don't see any reason whatsoever why you'd want to do that. If you got your counter hit, you lose the combo by doing that. And doing that anyway is also -14, just like the low was. So I don't see any good reason to bother with that. You'd lose your combo and you gain nothing. So I personally would just stick to just doing Cat 4. And if I get the hit, I got a Panther mix up. Counter hit, I get a combo. And blocked, I eat shit. That's just the nature of the game. I don't think the 3+4 extension gives me any benefits. So kind of just skip that. And lastly, Cat 1+2 is another mid. This one doesn't knock down, but it takes you into Panther with a huge amount of recovery. On hit, you could just party time, get whatever you want. But on block, it's going to be a little bit unsafe. So it's another version of mid. It's everything that just kind of works together, right? Some mids are better than others, but have different properties. Some lows are good, some lows are bad. But that also goes into Wolf. So she has 2 ways into Wolf out of this stance as well. And again, the movement works. You tap forward, just like Cat, forward into that. If you're in heat mode, you can go Cat into Heaven and Earth, or you can backdash out of it. Same thing. So getting into Cat is a lot easier. The stance is going to show up a lot more often, so I think that's not why it's not quite as powerful. It's just got a little bit of everything to pepper in and out. Just add some variety, because you're going to be using this a lot. First up is your 10-frame Punisher, 1-2-2. I don't recommend this a ton out in the open. This is very, very bad on block. You can do 1-2-3, and you can do 1-4 and stuff, and occasionally like throw this out. You should be able to hit confirm. Oh, I got the hit, and then let the 2 go. It's up to you. Very risky, though, to just use that out in the open. Same with 2-2. Best use is just your Punisher in the Cat stance, and that's it. I don't want to do this a ton out in neutral because it's -12. Again, the stance doesn't get you out of trouble for doing that. Up forward 4, the hop kick, same thing. Takes you into stance automatically, but if it's blocked, it's punishable like any other hop kick is. And even on block, you still get the stance transition, but it doesn't really matter if they hit you. On hit, you get your combo, obviously. The other moves, they're all going to be 0 on block, but like +8 to 11 on hit. So for example, down forward 2 here. That transition to Cat stance is 0. But since we learned my fastest move is 13, they can blow me up. Anything that's 10, 11, or 12 frames, if I do this, it's going to hit me. So we'll talk about that in the strategy section, so you got to be careful with that. However, if this connects, it's +11. You're free to go. Party all you want. Doesn't matter. But on block, you got to be careful with these. Whereas the horse stance, forward 2 on block, you can still go from it. So down forward 2, you got to be careful with. 3+4, same thing. Really, really good move. On hit, you're gravy. On block, 0. Got to be careful. While standing 1-2 and while standing 4-2, also the same thing. Do notice that 4 of these 7 moves are punishers that we covered already. You should probably just stick to the punishment function of those moves and not be doing them. The only moves you need to do out in the open to get into Cat are down forward 2 and 3+4. That's it. That's all you need to focus on doing. The rest you save for punishment, and Cat is a bonus. Think of it that way. The last way to get in there is up forward 1. This parries high attacks. And when it follows up, you get to go into Cat. If you press the 2 button, it does the follow-up automatically. But if you press 2, you get 3 extra damage. You get the blue sparks and the 3 damage that way. So that parries highs, and then it does the follow-up, and then you're into Cat stance from there. So that's kind of a unique one to do too. You want to use that. This is a really good move. If you happen to parry a high, awesome. You get more damage and you go into cat. Otherwise, like I said, down forward 2, 3 plus 4. That's what you're focusing on. And a lot of your punishment game takes you into cat. That's all you need. So next up is the secondary stance, Stalking Wolf. And again, this game is accessible from both of the first 2 stances, unlike in Tekken 7. So Stalking Wolf is a lot harder to get into, so to speak. But you just got to play the game right. If you're getting your hits and you're doing well, everything is going to go even better for you. So these are not fast moves in general, but you got to just play the game fair and take what you get. Do not overextend and take what you have not gotten. Take what you get instead. So Wolf 1 is this knockdown move that you can charge. Bang! And you get a combo when it charges all the way. But if they let you do that, awesome. Otherwise, you can press back to cancel that. Like that. And then fake them out. This will also go into heaven and earth automatically when it hits, which is very cool. We saw that earlier with the horse stance. The bang. And then changes so you get a guaranteed knockdown. You don't have to charge it or anything like that. So nice little bonus there. Heaven and earth shows up on Wolf 1. Very cool. Plus on block. Even if they don't fall for anything, that's plus 2 on block, so hooray. Even better. You go all the way into your wolf stance, and you still get frame advantage to pressure them afterward. That's pretty nice. Wolf 2, this little mid, hits grounded, really good in combos, doesn't do anything otherwise. It's just a nice mid that knocks down for safe. -7 mids that knock down are always good in my book. It's got great combo utility as well. Wolf 3-1, not a natural combo anymore. If the 1 hits by itself, you get that knockdown, you get a guaranteed follow-up. So that's another level to have to deal with. This used to be a natural combo, but now it isn't. Still safe. I mean, that's not bad. -6 for going for a mid-mid string. That's pretty good. But if you catch that 1 hit by itself, you make them flinch, you get guaranteed follow-up too. So that's kind of cool. And the last one is Wolf 4. That's just a single button. All I'm pressing is 4. That comes out all on its own, and I believe it jails. I think you're forced into blocking the mid, so it's -16 no matter what you do. If you block that first low, you block the mid automatically, -16, big time punish. But as the final low in the string, that's fair that it's kind of bad on block. That's your last layer of mix-up, not the end of the world. And obviously, like I said before, you can still take all of the stances into heaven and earth when you're in heat mode, and you can backdash it. So Stalking Wolf has got some all or nothingness to it, I suppose, but it is a lot harder to get into. Most of the things that go into it are pretty unsafe. Quarter circle, 1 + 2, 2. That goes into Wolf directly without having to go to the other stances, but if it's blocked, it's -14. If it hits, gravy, right? You can do whatever you want. Go for the mix-up. That's the rule with all of them, but you really got to pay attention to these stances. Do not overextend yourself. Cat 4 we talked about, and Horse 4. Both go into the stance. Cat 1 + 2, and Horse 1. All into Stalking Wolf automatically. Some of them knock down, like Cat 1 + 2. That knocks down like that, and you kind of have to just go for it. Whereas Horse 4, Horse 4 is a good example too. This knocks down on hit, so just use your Wolf and follow up. But on block, you still get to use your advantage and use Wolf as a mix-up rather than just a follow-up. So that brings us to the final stance that really caps it all off, and that is Heaven and Earth. Again, it's only accessible during heat mode. You can do it out of any of the 3 stances by pressing up, which you can do even faster than you can block. We mentioned how all the stances take 8 frames to block. This says -11, right? It's -19 if you just block, because the stance takes 8 frames to block. But you can go into Heaven and Earth faster than that. That actually makes you -15. Heaven and Earth can be activated in 4 frames instead of 8. So you're still getting launched. Don't get me wrong there. But if they tried to go for anything slower, you can parry it. So that applies to everything. When you see -blank in the database, in the Google Doc, or in the move list, it's 8 frames more for you're able to block. So you can get punished really hard, but it's only 4 frames before you're able to parry. So some things like Cat 1 + 2, for example. That on block into Wolf is 11. So if I'm in heat mode, here's Cat 1 + 2, right? It says -3. It's 11 if I want to block. I'll get punished as -11. But if they try to punish me with a -11 move, I tap up and it parries that move, guaranteed. It's not fast enough. So Heaven and Earth, the transition takes 4 frames off of your block window. So you can get out of jail free, basically, in a lot of punishment situations. Not all of them, and it can soften some. But like this is a good example. If they go for a 19 frame launcher, which they could normally do, but you're in heat mode, you can negate that. So Heaven and Earth does that. It eats up a parry right in the very beginning, so it gets you out of trouble with a lot of your other stances. On top of that, it builds that stock you see under the health bar. There's 3 levels to that. Every time you activate Heaven and Earth, that goes up. And I believe it's permanent. It carries over between rounds. I don't think there's anything you do that resets it that I'm aware of. Not sure. But those levels increase, and it adds power to some of your other moves, including stuff in Heaven and Earth and some things without. So on top of all of that, the moves out of Heaven and Earth itself are just brutal. That's one. That big swinging chop is a power-crushing mid-natural launcher. Only -11. Not so bad. Like I said, this is the end of your parry thing, so if you're just keeping them going, you get all the way this far, and you go for that big launcher, -11. It's not so bad. Not a bad price to pay. 2 is that little pop, which is really nice. That is +6 on block and causes chip. They both cause chip damage, by the way. 1 and 2 both cause chip damage out of Heaven and Earth. But that little pop 2 punches, those are nice. That's +6. So at the end of that, you can still continue your offense. You go all the way up to Heaven and Earth. You know, you're doing blah, 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 blah. You're doing this. Boom, boom. It's still +6 and it's still your turn. That's excellent. The icing on the cake is 1+2. Unblockable in 16 frames. There's nothing that's guaranteed. They can always duck this. I don't believe you have any frame traps sufficient enough to keep them by getting hit by it. They can duck. It's a high. But if they start ducking, you know, that's the name of the game. You got them. If they start ducking against this character, good night, nurse. You get them with that stuff, and they'll never duck again. So getting into Heaven and Earth is complicated. As we said, it's only during heat mode. All 3 stances can tap up and go into it. But you have a couple of moves that will also do so. We saw Stalking Wolf 1, and we saw Horse 2. Horse 2 goes into heat mode and activates Heaven and Earth immediately. Wolf 1, oops, I'm not in heat mode. Wolf 1 activates heat mode and gets a follow-up, so you get to smack him for that. 1+2 in neutral does the same thing, right? You get, when it powers up in heat mode, different properties, activates Heaven and Earth. There's a bunch of those, but anyway, the moves that get you into that are 1+2, while running 1, again, all in heat mode. You have to be in heat mode. While running 1 can do it, Horse 2, and Wolf 1. Other than that, the only way to do it is to go into your stances and press up. Like that. It's the only way into Heaven and Earth. So it's kind of tricky, but totally worth the rewards. So that is your stance system. That is the core of the character. I know it sounds like a lot to take in all at once. Just pick a thing and focus on it. Learn Horse for a day and don't worry about anything else. Just get used to Horse, what Horse does, and how to get into it. The most confusing thing I had playing Lidia in Tekken 7 was knowing which stance I'm going into. I know forward 2 is one and down forward 2 is one, but I could never remember which stance that was going to get me. I certainly couldn't remember which stance was going to go next. Where's that going to Wolf? Or I have no idea. So learn that. One step at a time. Get used to Horse, then take on Cat, and then start to mix it all together. So this is the bulk of the character. You're going to get so much work out of doing this. The rest of the moveset is tailored around getting you into this. So I think this is a good foundation to start with. Learn these a little bit at a time, then start to add in the fine little details like additional stance transitions and frame traps, etc., etc. Just get used to the moveset and start from there.